Hi, everybody, it's Lee Caraher, and this is Everything Speaks, where we talk about how everything you do and say speaks for you if you want it to or not. And we are focusing the first part of this year on how to be a better communicator because, communication is at the center of all things. If you can't communicate, it doesn't matter what else you do because no one hears you, no one understands you, and you can't get your point across. If you can't get your point across, what does it matter? Doesn't. So today we're going to talk about a big one. It's authenticity in communication. And why does this matter, Lee? Everyone knows who I am. Everyone knows that I'm real. No, they don't. They don't. They don't. So why does authenticity matter? Because nobody trusts a phony. Nobody trusts somebody who's trying to pull the wool over their eyes, and everyone can tell. Everyone can tell when you're not being authentic. Everyone can tell when you're trying to obfuscate. And of course, we've all been guilty, raise his hand, of putting on our corporate voice in meetings or nodding along in a conversation we don't understand, or just to avoid looking like an idiot. Okay, maybe it's just me. Probably not. Just saying. So let's break it down. And why is authenticity so important? How does it build trust? And how you can actually be authentic without oversharing everything about you. Now, if you listen to this podcast more than twice, you know that my life is an open book and I share more than I should. You don't have to. You don't have to in order to be an authentic communicator and to have people understand your point of view, your empathy, and what you're trying to say. So, number one, authenticity builds trust. Trust is the foundation of any good relationship, personal, professional, even if you're going to the restaurant and you're looking at your server, do you trust that person or not? Or you're at the coffee shop and you may not know that person's name, but you trust them because you see them all the time, and they know your order, even if you don't know their name. Authenticity is what makes trust possible. Dr. Nick Morgan, who's a communication expert, he's written several books and he teaches at Harvard and other places, says that authenticity is the one key leadership attribute that inspires others. Because people don't have to follow you. People don't have to follow us. They choose to follow you. They may work for you, but it doesn't mean that they're following you, right? And if you can't inspire others, you can't get a lot done. You definitely can't get a lot done, and my favorite word, efficiently, right? So authenticity is that key leadership attribute that inspires others. If people believe you mean what you say, they'll follow you. If they believe that you're telling them the truth, and you do tell them the truth, if they will hop on board, or they'll know not to hop on board, but you'll have an honest reaction from the people you're trying to talk with, communicate with, inspire, and move to act. If they suspect you're faking it, everyone's going to tune out faster than me at a dumb meeting that I'm irritated at, which if you listen to last week's episode, you know that happens a lot, unfortunately, right now. So the key on this leadership, the key to being a great communicator is to be authentic. It's the most efficient way to communicate as well. And efficiency is why do we bother doing things that aren't efficient? Just saying. Beyond the leadership of trust, authenticity creates psychological safety, which is, we've talked about this in a previous episode, the psychological safety among the people that you're speaking with in the workplace, at home, in an organization. It's basically the concept that people feel comfortable speaking up without fear of judgment. And we've also talked about this. The more input you get from different voices, the better decisions you can make. It's empirically true. There's a lot of data on this. And people don't provide their real input if they don't trust they're not going to get shot down. If they don't trust that you're not going to make fun of them. If they don't trust you're not going to listen to them. So that authenticity is the baseline for being able to make the best decisions possible in any organization. When people feel safe, they bring their better ideas to the table, they collaborate more, and it makes life easier for everyone. Again, efficiency. When people don't do those things, when they hold back, it just grinds the whole group to a halt. Number 2, authenticity makes people happier, which I love being happy. I love when my people are happy. I love when everyone's on the same page, moving in the same direction, and can understand where the goal is and their part in it. And when people don't have to pretend to be someone they're not, they're happier. It's shocking, I know. Because it takes energy. Trying to be someone you're not takes energy, and everyone can feel it. Everyone can feel it. The people who feel comfortable being themselves at work, which may be de rigueur today, but I'm still with it, man. I'm sticking with this idea that when you have people who are happy in their jobs, who are bringing themselves to work, you get more better done faster. And we don't want people who just tolerate their jobs. We want people who look forward to their jobs, right? It's a huge deal. It's a huge deal. When you are authentic and people can be authentic with you, they're more engaged, they're more motivated, they're more productive, and they make better colleagues, right? We're not dreading the conflict. And I'm not going to say the K word, but we all have one. We dread seeing in our day, like, oh, they're going to sigh, they're going to roll their eyes, going to have to deal with it. In my company, we don't have that because that doesn't happen because we don't allow it. But we all dread doing that every day. We're going to see somebody. Hopefully we don't, but we're going to see someone who rolls their eyes. And that energy we spend gearing up for it and then recovering from it is just inefficient because we can't bring ourselves because we're not trustworthy of the other person actually not judging us. Of course, there's a trap if you go too real, right? Do you have to share your whole life, all your insecurities, everything to be authentic? You do not. You do not. But if you're the leader and you don't know the answer, you should say so. You should absolutely say so. The authenticity is great, but credibility also matters, right? And people don't just want you to be real. They want you to be competent. So if you don't know the answer, it's okay to say, I don't know the answer, but go get it. I don't know the answer, but I'm going to find that answer. Because faking it for a tough answer is not authentic. It's a lie, right? Number 2. And then it just, everybody knows. And then and then they're undermining their belief in you as a competent person. So they don't want you just to be real. People want you to be competent and authentic, both, right? But, you don't have to say, I don't know the answer. I'm never going to know the answer. Gosh, I'm stupid. I don't know. You don't have to do that. You say, I don't know the answer and I will get it. Or that's an interesting opinion. Or if you have changed your mind, just to say, I've changed my mind on this because of these inputs, so that you're building your credibility by sharing your authentic reasoning, etc., right? The office is not a therapy session unless you're a psychologist and you are having people come to you for that. That's different, right? So the rule of thumb is be authentic, but keep it professional. One thing I always tell our clients, if you don't want to see it in the paper or online or on TMZ or whoever I'm talking to, right? If you don't want to see that, just dial it back a little bit. Again, you don't have to share everything about yourself to be an authentic leader, to be an authentic colleague, to build credibility. So the next piece of that is in today's world. So being authentic when you're in person is one thing. Being authentic online is a huge deal, right? And it's harder. It's harder, particularly if you are trying to be an influencer or be a persona that is not you, right? Every study on this topic shows that people trust responsive and transparent communication, whether it's in a company's social media or it's a leader's email or it's a speech or it's an article. Responsive and transparent communication is what builds credibility. And as long as it's authentic, as long as you're not trying to pull the wool over people's eyes. So if What does that mean? If your online presence feels scripted or bought, or was written by a PR person, raise his hand, or it's on autopilot, people aren't going to connect with it. But worse PR people are, you can see it, right? You can see these quotes and they're just terrible. They're just terrible. And it gives PR people a bad name when you're not speaking as a person and actually answering the question and connecting with the intention of the question or the comment, right? So being real in digital communication, dropping the jargon, keeping it human, and not using stock photos of people high-fiving each other in conference rooms. You're going to have people high-fiving in conference rooms. Make it your own people. It's unusual that would happen. High fives are for other places. Maybe the sports field, right? Maybe the bar kind of thing. So, what are some ways you can be authentic without overdoing it? First is 1, self-reflection. Understand your values, your beliefs, and your emotions. If you don't know what you stand for, neither is anyone else. It's not impossible, right? For anyone else to know what you stand for. So we've talked about this at length on the podcast around values. Understand where you are. Understand what grounds you and where your emotion is at any moment in time, so you can make sure that you are channeling it and using it to your advantage, meaning not to take advantage of it, but to leverage it to make sure that you're as even keeled and emotionally appropriate as possible. Active listening, my favorite topic. Communication isn't just about talking. It's about listening. You cannot have a conversation if you're not listening to the other person. Ask those open-ended questions. Pay attention. And don't just wait for your turn to speak. You're not listening to respond. That's not the point. You're listening to communicate and to engage with the person with where they're at as well, right? We're matching their energy, getting to the point, that kind of thing. Transparency and honesty, sharing information openly, but be mindful of context. There's a difference between being real and being reckless, or being real and sharing information that is not yours to share. Don't do that. And if people have a question on like, what does Joe make? And you don't have a sharing of, in your policy at your work is not to share everybody's salaries, unless you're a publicly traded company and that person's an officer and therefore it has to be publicly disclosed. It's no one else's business if that's your policy. So being transparent and honest about things is super, super important, obviously. Consistency. I'm going to have a whole episode on this consistency thing. If your words and your actions don't match up, you're countermanding yourself, and everyone notices. Everyone notices. So subtitle of this podcast is Say What You Mean What You Say. And that is all about the things that you say and you do to convey that thought so that you're bringing it home. Consistency also is being repetitious. Consistency, so having a schedule. Again, we're going to have a whole episode on how to be consistent communication. One thing that we've talked about a lot, you used to use numbers 12 in marketing, 12 times the right person to see the right message in the right place for them to act or not act intentionally. We use the number 37 today. It might be up to 119. Who knows? It's up there. So 37 times in advertising, the right person has to see the right thing in the right place to act or consciously not act. So one and done doesn't do it. And being regular about your communication will help. And saying the same thing over and over again will help. And managing your behavior to match your intent will help drive the authentic communication that builds trust and builds believability and builds leadership capacity. And then being adaptable, right? You want to be yourself, but you got to read the room. You have to read the room. Who you are, how you show up in a boardroom and how you show up on the pool deck at your kids' swim meet are usually two different people. How you show up at a party is not how you show up at a crisis situation. So when you want to read the room, if people are somber all around you and you don't know something, or they don't trust you. So read the room, and you want to match the energy to the room, not to force it, And then also the language, right? And if your goal is to move a group from point A to point B, you got to start at point A and then build to point B in terms of adaptability. The just being constant yourself, only one way. If you're only one way, if you only show up in one kind of energy, that is you forcing yourself onto a situation and not engaging in a way that is respectful and acknowledges what's going on around you. Context is key on this, and being adaptable to the situation lets you be trustworthy, competent, and how you can authentically match that so that you are paying attention. If you're not paying attention, it doesn't matter. It's not authenticity and communication to be a good communicator, to have people follow you, to people know what they have to do. It's not a nice to have. It's essential, right? It's essential. It builds trust. It enhances engagement. It makes you a more effective communicator. But you obviously have to balance it with professionalism and credibility because it's threading that needle on that. So again, what are we going to do? We're going to be real. We're going to be clear. We're not going to be afraid to show up as ourselves, as long as we understand how ourselves we each in a room, in a context, in a situation, so that you can match it. And then you can actually meet the situation where it is with the knowledge that you have, the questions that you have, and the answers that you have in a way that builds trust and engagement and, my favorite word, efficiency. All right, go be authentic. Cut the jargon. No more corporate buzzwords. Meet the room. Be you. Be you. And now you be the best communicator you can be. All right, until next time, I'm Lee Caraher, and this is Everything Speaks.